Welcome to Pet Info Cafe. This is Jennifer Eileen. I'm your host, and I am happy to present Rabbit 101 today. We are here at the Animal Welfare League of Alexandria, and Julianne Jones, one of the volunteers, would like to tell us all about this wonderful organization. Julianne.
Hello. Yes, so thank you for coming. We're really excited to have you here. I've been a volunteer with the shelter since 2019, and this shelter has done so much for the community. They're out there doing vaccines, helping people in need, as well as like if people are in tough situations and need a place for their pet for a little bit, they do that type of thing too, as well as what you would expect normal adoptions. So I started out coming here just for the dogs, and then I got into the small animal world and have been fostering guinea pigs, rabbits, kittens, all kinds of things. So I just looked it up. I've been fostering 28 rabbits so far, which is crazy, but there's not a lot of rabbit fosters, and they are awesome. So I'm really excited to have this today so people get to learn how cool rabbits are, how much personality they have, you know, that they can be free roam just like a cat or dog, and all kinds of things. So excited to be here with you all today.
Thank you very much. We're excited to get started.
Hello everyone, my name is Lindsay. I am with Friends of Rabbits. We are a nonprofit and we work to rescue rabbits and rehome them. Welcome to Rabbit 101, thank you for being here. Today what we are going to do is we're going to go through the basics of what is required to house a rabbit, to feed a rabbit, and in general what you need to know in order to have rabbits as pets. So let's get started. Okay, so this is very basic facts. So one of the first questions I get when people ask me about rabbits is about their lifespan. In general, we like to say between 8 and 12 years is a lifespan. That depends also on the breed of rabbit, the size of rabbit, and so that varies depending on the individual rabbit. The sizes, there are many, many breeds. Sometimes we get rabbits that are 4 pounds, sometimes we have 20-pound rabbits, so it really varies. And domestic rabbits is what we deal with at Friends of Rabbits. They are different from the wild rabbits you see outside in your yard. The wild rabbits they have the classic cottontail look, so they're very small, they're very slim, they have a slim face, and they're all the same color. Domestic rabbits, if you see any rabbit in your yard that isn't small and that isn't just the classic brown, that is a domestic rabbit. So if they have long hair, or if they are any white, black, gray, if they have floppy ears, or if they are gigantic, those are domestic rabbits and they should be pets. So housing, for general guidelines, we like to ask people who adopt rabbits to give them at least, at the very minimum, the size of an exercise pen, which you can see here. So that is about 4 by 4 feet. This isn't a thing that they should be in 24/7. Rabbits are very active and they need exercise. So every single day we try to have our rabbits out and they need to exercise. They like to play. They have very active minds. So this is a temporary thing, the exercise pen. Just for example, if you are not home and you can't supervise them, they can be in an exercise pen, but that is not something they are in 24/7. For flooring, I do see some people who think that they can give their rabbits a wire floor or a hardwood floor. That is actually kind of dangerous. It can lead to injuries, so we like to give our rabbits solid floor that also has some sort of padding or some sort of carpet for traction so that they don't slip. So these are some other examples of what a setup should look like in a pen for a rabbit. You can see that there's carpet so that they don't slip. They have a litter box, they have toys, constant access to food and water, and of course a hiding house, as they are prey animals, so they like to have a place that they can feel safe. These are 2 examples of what is inappropriate for a rabbit. Rabbits, for one, do not need to be housed outside. When they're outside, they are exposed to things like diseases, parasites, predators, and also drastic temperature changes. They are not equipped to deal with very hot or very cold temperatures, so that is why we like to see them housed indoors. This is also another sort of cage that is not appropriate for a rabbit because of the size. Once in a while, some people who have these will leave the door of the cage open so that this is kind of their main hiding spot, but this is not something that a rabbit should be in for long periods of time due to the size of it. And once again, the reason why we have rabbits indoors is because of the outdoor conditions, and also the fact that they are prey animals is another reason why indoor housing is ideal. One question I get a lot is about litter box training. Rabbits can be litter box trained. They are not 100% accurate like a cat would be because they have a different diet. They are eating 24/7 and therefore they are pooping and peeing 24/7. But for the most part, rabbits are very smart and they know exactly what to do once you give them a litter box. Rabbit diet, the most important part of that for them is hay. They should have 24/7 access to hay. I like to compare them to horses. They are constantly grazing, always eating. That makes up most of their diet and sometimes all of the diet depending on the rabbit. We, for the most part, at Friends of Rabbits, we feed Timothy and orchard hay. Sometimes you'll see people feed alfalfa. That is a lot more nutrient dense than Timothy and orchard hay, so we feed that to baby rabbits or underweight rabbits or lactating rabbits because they need more nutrition than a regular adult rabbit. So if you're feeding alfalfa to a baby rabbit, at some point you will transition to Timothy and orchard because the alfalfa is so nutrient dense that it can lead to issues like obesity. So that is how hay works. Constant water access is required. A lot of people, when they're starting out with new rabbits, they'll give them a water bottle. The water bottle is less ideal than a bowl. A bowl is much more instinctive and natural for them. So we, at Friends of Rabbits, will give them a water bowl. A lot of the times it's a big ceramic bowl so that they don't spill them and tip them over. But that's much easier for rabbits to figure out how to use than a water bottle. All right, so these parts, pellets and veggies, are optional as part of the diet. Pellets you'll see at the store. They are kind of there as extra nutrition, kind of like a supplement. You'll never need to feed only pellets. They can have, as a general guideline, an 1/8 to a 1/4 cup daily. We feed brands like Oxbow, Selective, or Sherwood. The treats and pellets should be hay-based. A lot of the ingredients that are inappropriate for rabbits are things like seeds, nuts, corn, grains. Everything should be mostly hay. And then vegetables will feed to the rabbits as well as part of their diet. Again, it should not make up most of their diets. It's just a additional supplemental part of their diet. They'll usually get 1 to 2 cups daily. And on the next slide, I have a little guideline of the vegetables that can be fed to rabbits. For the most part, lettuce and herbs can be fed daily. The one type of lettuce to avoid is iceberg lettuce. That can cause stomach upset. So the most common types of lettuce that we feed are romaine, green leaf, and red leaf. There are some vegetables that should be fed more sparingly due to their nutritional content. Some of the vegetables like parsley or spinach or kale are high in calcium, and that can lead to things like bladder stones. So we like to see that fed more sparingly than some of the other vegetables. And then some of the other ones like cabbage or kale can cause gas. So depending on the rabbit, some are more sensitive than others. That is another thing to watch out for. Unsafe vegetables for bunnies would include iceberg lettuce, onions, corns, any sort of garlic, potatoes. They do not need to eat that. Most of them, they won't touch it anyway because they know. Another thing about their diet is that rabbits are what we call coprophagic. They eat their own feces. So they produce two types of feces. One is the most common that you'll see is the small, round, very uniform, hard pellets. That is the ones that they won't eat. The ones that they do eat are called cecotropes. They are soft, they're mushy, they're stuck together. You won't see those as much because they're consuming those in order to redigest what is still left in there. Grass and hay is very hard to digest, so I like to compare it to when you see cattle, they chew their cud. That's also another thing that animals will do in order to reabsorb nutrients. And then the last thing I have on diet is about teeth. Not a lot of people know this, but rabbits, their teeth grow throughout their lifetime. So their teeth will never stop growing. They just keep going and going. So another thing to watch out for is dental issues. A lot of times hay and pellets is enough to keep their teeth ground down, but that's also another thing that you need to provide toys for so that they can chew and to grind them down. Once in a while, there will be rabbits with dental issues, but that is something that a vet can catch. All right, and again, touching on toys and enrichment, the most important thing is chewing so that they can keep their teeth ground. But other activities that rabbits will participate in include digging, shredding, and tossing. You can see in the top corner over there, we have a toy that they'll chew on. Willow is very popular for rabbits. They'll chew and munch on it and they'll really destroy toys. So as long as you get toys that are rabbit safe, Willow, that is something that they enjoy. Stacking cups are popular for bunnies who like to toss things. You'll see rabbits who like to throw and they'll toss their toys all around. Another very easy and cheap alternative for toys is cardboard. For example, my rabbit, if you give her a cardboard box, it'll be completely gone the next day. So if you ever need to find something for your rabbit to do, I think cardboard is definitely up there on things that a lot of rabbits enjoy. And then this picture here you can see is newspaper. Bunnies who enjoy shredding, they really love newspaper. So I'll give my bunny newspaper as well. It's very fun and easy to give to bunnies. So that is most of the things I think that covers toys. All right, so rabbit behaviors. I think a lot of people do not know about what a rabbit behavior looks like because they are, to me, very full of personality and they can all be very different. Not a lot of people know what it looks like when they're happy or when they're upset. So I just have a list of things that some rabbits will do commonly. So thumping is one thing that they'll do. They'll kind of thump their hind legs and that's how they'll let you know that they're afraid or if they're upset. Flopping and binkying are both things that happy rabbits will do. So flopping, they'll kind of just flop on their side. That's how you know they're content. And binkying is kind of what I like to think of as a form of zooming. It looks like a very powered up hop. And I also have on there lunging or even vocalizing. Not a lot of people know that rabbits are vocal. They do not vocalize in the same way that dogs and cats will, so it's much more rare. But bunnies can vocalize to express boundaries or to express that they're in pain. It really depends on the context. So if you hear your rabbit vocalizing, you will have to use clues, but that is something that some bunnies will do more than other bunnies. So another thing about bunny behavior is that they are territorial. So that makes them a little different than other animals like dogs and cats. They like to mark their territory. Most of the time it is by pooping or peeing. And another thing you'll see that bunnies do for territorial behavior is what we call chinning. They'll rub their chins on surfaces and that gets their scent on there. So if you introduce your rabbit to your house and they've never been to your house, sometimes they will go around and chin your furniture. Poop and pee, that is something that happens with new environments as well. Because a new environment does not smell like that rabbit, they'll need to poop and pee in order to make the environment smell like them. So a lot of people will ask me, why is my rabbit not pooping and peeing inside the litter box? The answer most of the time is you just need to give them a couple of days to figure out that this house is their house. So once it smells like them, that is usually going to tell them that they are allowed to use the litter box now. And then the last detail about litter box use is spaying and neutering. At Friends of Rabbits, we do not adopt out rabbits until they are spayed and neutered. And that is for a lot of reasons, but one of the reasons is because when they are spayed and neutered, they get a lot better about their litter box because of when they are spayed and neutered, their hormones will die down. They'll feel less need to be territorial, and that's when they get better with their litter box. So social behaviors. Rabbits are social animals, and a lot of the times they will get along with another rabbit or another animal. With other animals, I've seen a lot of different scenarios. They'll get along with dogs, cats, birds, guinea pigs. But with other rabbits, it is a little more complicated. It is dangerous to put two rabbits together and expect them to get along right off the bat because of their territorial nature. So at Friends of Rabbits, that's another thing that we offer is bonding services. It is an entire process of introducing two rabbits because you have to start in a neutral space where it doesn't smell like them. You have to monitor them. So that is what, for people in person, you'll see in this corner, what we're doing right now is bonding two rabbits. So they are together in a neutral environment. So we're seeing if they're getting along, if they'll like each other, and we'll keep them in a neutral environment. And then slowly over time, we introduce them to things like litter boxes and houses and things that they may or may not feel territorial about. But because of their tendency to be possessive over either territories or items like toys, that is why we have to make a whole entire detailed thought out process with bonding. So signs of illness with rabbits. Rabbits, because they are prey animals, they hide their illnesses and they hide when they are not feeling well. They hide it a lot better than a predatorial animal would. So that is something that if you think your rabbit is ill, it's going to be very subtle signs. So this is just a list of a few signs of illness. I do have a poop chart here with pictures of poop where you can see the first two are what are normal poops. So they'll be the hard pellets and then the cecotropes. These two is what you might look for if you think your rabbit is at risk of GI stasis. The first picture is the poops that are linked. They are linked with fur. So that can cause GI stasis, not the poops that are linked, but fur, because they'll kind of build up as hairballs, which can cause obstructions, which would cause their GI tract to become immobile. So if you see this, it's not an emergency. It's just a sign that you need to brush your rabbit or groom or shave your rabbit because this indicates that your rabbit has been grooming him or herself and is ingesting more fur than usual. So this doesn't mean that your rabbit is going to be in stasis. It is just kind of a warning sign that you need to brush. The second picture is kind of more urgent than if you're seeing what's in the other one up here. So stasis poop is kind of when you notice that your rabbit's poops are getting smaller, more irregular. The most perfect bunny poops are uniform and they are identical. So if you're noticing that your rabbit poops are changing in size or if they're changing in texture and shape, that could be a sign of stasis. If they're just becoming smaller and smaller, that indicates that your rabbit's GI tract is kind of having a harder time digesting things and moving things along in their gut and forming poops. That's not going to be an emergency that requires a vet yet because they are still pooping, which is a good sign. But that is when you should be watching for if they are still pooping. Some rabbits, because they are prey animals and they want to hide their pain or their illness, they will pretend to eat. So it is a good idea to watch if they are actually eating hay and drinking water, and then if they are actually pooping and peeing. So that's another time where you might need to clean up more often so that you know how much is going in and how much is going out. These last two pictures are not stasis related, but mucus and diarrhea, that's going to be more of an urgent situation that needs medical attention. Anytime there's mucus, that kind of indicates that something is going on
inside their bodies that is an immune response. So that's going to be something that you need to ask a vet about. And diarrhea, that's also going to be another thing you need to ask a vet about, because diarrhea kind of will dehydrate them as the water in their bodies is going out and not being retained. And then the last picture, no poop, that is an emergency. That could be stasis or it could be something else. You don't want to assume that no poop and no eating means stasis, because there are a number of other things that could cause a rabbit to stop eating and stop pooping and peeing. But that's everything.
Change in urine, that is also another thing. Their urine can change color over time due to things like water intake or due to the type of vegetables they're eating. You kind of just have to know your rabbit and what it usually looks like in order to know what looks abnormal. Other signs of illness, any kind of nasal or eye discharge, sneezing, wheezing, head tilt, and uncontrollable rolling are signs of some kind of neurological issue. And then itching and scratching, that can sometimes indicate a skin issue or a parasite. All right, so one of the biggest issues with rabbits is something we call GI stasis. So that indicates a lack of motility in their gastrointestinal tract. Rabbit anatomy does not allow for vomiting or burping, so everything that moves in their GI tract has to go one way. So that means that if something stops moving, whether that be due to a fur blockage or due to gas, then they're going to have a stomach ache, and that leads to things like they'll stop eating, or they'll show signs of pain, or they might withdraw from activity. So if you ever notice that your rabbit is kind of seeming lethargic, or they're not excited about food, or if they seem like they're kind of avoiding their normal activities and in pain, this might be one of the issues that is a cause of that. A lot of the times with GI stasis, if you catch it in time or if you catch it early, at Friends of Rabbits, we can treat with gas drops and subcutaneous fluids. That's something that we can do at home. But if it has been a longer period of time, that might be something that requires veterinary care. It can be fatal if you don't catch it in time because of the pain, A, and B, because if they're not eating, then they're not going to be able to make it through long periods. So these are just a few examples of signs of pain and discomfort that you might be able to see if your rabbit is in stasis. A lot of the times they'll kind of withdraw from activity, and you might not see them engaging in their regular play, or they might not be excited about eating as much. Sometimes you'll see them get very tense around their eyes. They'll squint, or they'll tense up their muscles and kind of hunch. That's how you might be able to tell if they're in pain. Teeth grinding, that does depend on context, because some rabbits will grind their teeth out of pleasure when they're pet. But for example, if your rabbit is grinding and you're not petting them, that could be a sign of pain. And then I do have on the next slide some images that I use for my reference. You can find this online. It's a rabbit grimace scale that shows what pain might look like in rabbits. So on this side, on the very left, you'll see what it looks like when there is no pain present. You'll see that the rabbit is very relaxed. Their eyes are open and there's no tightening around the eyes. You'll see that their nose here is very relaxed, and here you can see some clenching. And then you can use this kind of to gauge how your rabbit is feeling if you think that your rabbit is in pain. Right. So another health-related thing we'll have at Friends of Rabbits is sort of a DIY emergency or first aid kit. We have the situations we need that most would be in stasis, or if we have rabbits that need wound care, because sometimes they will bite each other through the pens. So this is just a list of a few things that might be needed for stasis. As we mentioned, there's gas drops, and then there's also critical care, which you can buy at the store. That kind of helps with assist feeding if your rabbit is not eating and they need an extra hand, so that's something that you would help your rabbit with. wound care that is less commonly needed, but because we have so many rabbits at our location, sometimes we will see rabbits that bite each other. We'll just clean it up and kind of monitor for infection. But for the most part, using gauze, betadine, and saline can help with the first steps of wound care. The rest of the items on the list will be for things that if you suspect either a fever or if you suspect that your rabbit needs to be, their temperature needs to be brought up, you can use a heating pad for. And then styptic powder is for nail trimmings. If you ever nick your rabbit, that is what styptic powder refers to. So veterinary care, there are rabbit specific veterinarians out there. Rabbits in general should see a veterinarian at least once a year just for a wellness exam so they can have a checkup to see if everything is okay. Your vet should be someone that specializes in rabbits. Rabbits do need to be regularly groomed. They should not be bathed. They will groom themselves kind of like a cat would, so you don't need to bathe a cat in the same way you don't need to bathe a rabbit. Brushing, that is something that you can do as needed. And then nail trims, services, we have grooming, pet sitting, bonding, or if you want to adopt, all of that you can find on our website. But if you need to reach anyone at all with specific questions, please do not hesitate. We will talk about bunnies all day, any day.
And just so you know, the shelter also has, I think we have one rabbit here at the moment, but we're also always looking for small animal fosters, rabbits, guinea pigs, occasional rats, if you're interested. So, yeah, thank you all.